Happy Bitcoin Wednesday, freaks. It's your host, Odell, here for another Citadel Dispatch, the interactive live show focused on actionable freedom tech and Bitcoin discussion. I am broadcasting live with a very special guest direct from Bitcoin Park on a very busy Wednesday here during our Lightning Summit week. This is going to be a great show. I'm very excited about it. But before we get started, I just wanted to thank all the freaks who continue to support the show. Dispatch is purely audience funded. It continues because of your support, the value for value that makes it happen. Thank you for sending sats to the show. Thank you for donating your Bitcoin. The easiest way to support the show is to go to citadeldispatch.com/donate. All the links in general are at citadeldispatch.com. You can also support the show through Podcasting 2.0 platforms, such as Fountain Podcasts, Podverse.fm, and Echo LN. I know it's been a while. I like to prioritize in-person conversation. I don't want to waste your time. I don't want to waste my time. So I do appreciate the freaks who stay true to Dispatch, even though there are sometimes weeks between episodes. So thank you, guys. I know not everyone can support the show with Bitcoin. Bitcoin is incredibly scarce. We just talked about time. It's the only thing more scarce than Bitcoin. So if you can't support the show that way, it really does help when you share it with your friends and family, when you subscribe on your favorite platform. Dispatch is available on all the major platforms, every podcast app. Leave a review. It does help. Thank you, guys. And what makes Dispatch truly unique is our interactive live chat. We have it on Matrix. We have it on YouTube. We have it on Twitch. But now we also have it on Zap.stream, which is a Nostr native streaming platform. Some of you might be listening from there. With all that said, before we get started, part of Podcasting 2.0 is that you can do boostograms. You can attach a message to a certain number of sats. And I read the top ones from the last episode. We have at Free Critter with 100,000 sats saying, heart, the Bitcoin Park party rip, settling in for 100 years of rugging, stay humble, stack sats. The last episode I called for 100 years of rugs. Free Critter also told me that it looked like my Lightning node was having trouble again, which was true. I think it should be working now. These are the joys of self-custody Lightning, sovereign Lightning in the early days. But thank you, freaks, for sticking in there with me. I will say that if your payment fails, you don't lose your sats. Your sats go back to your wallet. So don't worry about that. And also, it still counts towards the Podcasting 2.0 rankings, even if it doesn't go through. So thank you for boosting Dispatch up to the top. We have at Cumrocket with do the Bitcoin, stay humble, stack sats. Great advice. We have at Eric99, Ride or Die Freak with stay humble, stack sats. Really tremendous advice. Thank you, Eric. And we have at Ganilma with 11,111 sats saying keep working and keep it real. So with all that said, thank you, freaks, for supporting the show. We have a wonderful guest here who traveled internationally to make it. We have Miljan of Primal app, one of the most exciting Nostr-focused companies, here to join us. How is it going, Miljan?
Going amazing. Good to see you, Matt.
We gave you the whirlwind Bitcoin Park experience. Welcome.
It's amazing to be here, and what a great place you have. I'm blown away. For anyone out there who is on the fence about coming over, do it. It's totally worth it. Like the place is really nice, and the vibes are good, and the people are really nice too.
Yeah, I mean, we have a shit ton of people here right now.
Right, it's a bit of an outlier like this week.
Well, right now we have our monthly meetup is going on, which we run every month. And the topic is Lightning. But then the next 2 days, we have our Lightning Summit, where we have some of the best builders in the space are coming in to talk Lightning and collaborate and hang out. It looks like, okay, we have a lot of people in the live chat. You cannot see the live chat, but I will tell you about the live chat.
Love it.
So This is fucking awesome. I'm glad to have you here. It's good to kick it. Should we start with Derek Ross is telling us to apologize that he has a check on YouTube. We are going to be talking about Nostr today, and we're going to be talking about Primal. The last time some of you freaks might have heard about Nostr was when I had Fiat Jeff and JB55 on way back when, in the early days of Nostr. It's been a long, long time, but also a very short period of time in Nostr development and Nostr adoption. And since then, Primal has been launched. So I guess probably a lot of our live audience already knows what Nostr is. But a lot of people listening on the podcast feed might not know what is Nostr. So in your mind, let's distill Nostr just real quick, and then we can get into a deep conversation about Nostr.
Well, Nostr is, I guess, global open network for communications and publishing, which has an open social graph associated with it, as well as a monetary network kind of attached to it, which is Bitcoin Lightning payments. So if you combine all of those things, magical things happen. It's really game changing to have all of this together. And what's unfolding in front of our eyes, I think, is a sight to behold. That there's this technology that was created a couple of years ago. There was only a handful of guys working on it, only a few users. It was pretty kind of slow moving for maybe a year and a half. And then things started taking off at the end of last year, maybe November, December last year, when Jack Dorsey started endorsing it in a bigger way. And when Elon, for some reason, reacted to, I don't know whatever the current thing was at the moment, he was, I guess, threatened about linking out from Twitter, and he had made a rule at the time to forbid linking out to a certain number of sites. I forgot exactly the list, but it was the big sites. It was maybe Instagram and Mastodon.
The big one was Substack. Right?
Substack, exactly. It was around Substack, and then he
all the blue checks lost their shit on the Substack.
Right, exactly. And then in that list he listed Nostr at the bottom.
Right.
And the 25 people on Nostr were like, "What?" So that made me notice it, actually.
That was when you noticed it.
Well, I noticed it before. I think I actually listened to your pod with Fiat Jeff.
Let's fucking go.
I was looking at these types of kind of decentralized publishing technologies for a few years now. I was just on my own time researching that, trying to figure out how that problem gets solved, and wasn't quite happy with anything that I saw. I even tried designing my own protocol back a couple of years ago. Wasn't happy with that one either. Actually, I think I reached out to you at one point and we talked about it.
Yes, I remember that.
So props to you, Matt, for just taking a call from a random guy who had
many such cases.
I know. I witnessed it myself.
The best part about this movement is the people behind it.
Yeah. And let it be known that Matt just picked up the phone and talked to a random dude who wanted to talk about like decentralized publishing and decentralized social media. So anyway, I was not too happy with my own solution either. I put that aside. And then Nostr came on my radar a couple of times, but I kind of brushed it off. And it wasn't until November, December last year that I decided to take a closer look, and I was reading through the protocol, actually, through the spec, and it just hit me like a ton of bricks. This is going to work. That was the first thought, and the second thought was, we have a shit ton of work to do.
Okay, so we have maybe You went deep there. First of all, I just wanted to that dispatch, that original dispatch, with JB55 and Fiat Jeff, was episode 63 of Dispatch, if you haven't heard it. And Mr. Kooks joined us as well. Incredibly impressive BTC Pay server contributor and Nostr contributor. So Nostr, the way I look at Nostr, right? It's an interoperable, permissionless, censorship resistant communication protocol.
Yes.
That anyone can build on top of. That most of the applications we might not necessarily even comprehend, but we're humans, and for better or for worse, humans are spend a lot of time on social media. And one of the first main use cases of Nostr is essentially social media, using it as a social media alternative, where you cannot easily be censored. You can move between different apps. All those apps can communicate with each other. And from a Bitcoiner perspective, that you can also natively send Bitcoin payments to each other while using the protocol. When we see these centralized platforms that we've become to rely on, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, Reddit, they all have the same fundamental problem, which is there is a centralized entity, company that has full control over what happens on that platform. And we see censorship happen. We see policies get enacted that affect power users and all users. And there's this weird, never-ending circular people just jumping from platform to platform, but never really solving any of the fundamental core issues, right? And Nostr represents the ability for us to move away from that concept and move to something where the end user actually has control over their own communication, right?
Exactly. And I think the way you described it is great. What I would emphasize, though, is that from the get-go, it's a decentralized publishing protocol and a communication protocol that has a social graph that's open to everyone,
Right.
to develop on, and obviously not controlled by any person or any company. The combination of those things is really, like I said, groundbreaking. And when I discovered it, when I truly discovered it, I couldn't sleep for weeks. I'm still having a tough time actually coming to terms with it, because so many things can be built on it. The obvious things are kind of microblogging applications, Twitter clones.
Is that what we call Twitter microblogging?
Yeah.
Okay.
Is there a better name? I don't know.
Shit posting. I don't know.
Twitter clones, microblogging, that's an obvious thing to do. And I have a feeling the protocol was kind of designed with the intent that like you should be able to replicate those types of things on the protocol. I like the point of view of textual speech, like online speech, but in textual form. So excluding media like sound files and video files. So
It's text first.
Exactly. It's a text first type of protocol. And in addition to microblogging, we have long form content, which is also equally obvious to build on Nostr.
Substack Medium.
Exactly.
But open.
Exactly. So imagine all of those platforms, like you mentioned, where people and companies, corporations are in full control of everything. They own everything behind it. Imagine being able to build the same functionality without it being owned by any central authority. And the implications of that are huge, because the censorship issues that you brought up. Jack Dorsey's interview the other day, it kind of hit me that
the Jack and Jack interview.
The Jack and Jack interview, yes. When he told the story of how how they developed Twitter and how Twitter turned into what it is today. it hit me that usually when we talk about censorship, we think about the people who are being censored as the victims there, and that's that's probably true in most cases, but it's really those who are doing the censoring that are victims as well. Like, if you have the power to do that, that's a huge burden to carry.
Right.
And if you have that power, you will be made to use it.
You'll be pressured.
You'll be pressured by powerful actors to use it.
Right.
So the only solution is to not have that power. If the question is, who can decide who can speak,
Right.
who should have that power, the answer is like, no one should have that power.
Right. It's fucking crazy that someone could have that power.
Yes, and they do. There's like a handful of companies that basically have that power to decide that. So it's really super exciting to see Nostr kind of sprout out. Like, it's one thing to develop the technology. There have been some technologies before. I really like Nostr because of its simplicity and how effectively it does these things. But again, Nostr as a technology is one thing, but the network sprouting on top of it organically is really a sight to behold.
Right.
And we're witnessing that. And it kind of makes sense for it to be starting from the Bitcoin community, because we as Bitcoiners, we understand these types of problems. We have a culture of running nodes. So therefore, in Nostr, there are things like relays. There's thousands of relays out there.
Right. We run our own relay at Bitcoin Park.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And one of the big first kind of I guess critiques of Nostr was, what are the incentives for running a relay? No one's going to run a relay.
Right. Well,
there are thousands of relays and people are running them.
Well, I mean, I want to run a relay because I want to communicate too, right?
Yes. You want to make sure that your speech can be taken down by other people who run relays, so you run your own.
Okay. I mean, there's a lot of overlap there. For Bitcoiners, I mean, when you talk about the censorship on Twitter or Facebook, or I guess Instagram now has their own Twitter competitor, Threads. There's a lot of overlap there with Bitcoin in terms of PayPal censoring you, or Venmo censoring you, or Cash App censoring you, or Bank of America censoring you, right? And why? I think a lot of people just don't realize that we've just never been in this situation before. We've never had so much of our lives digital, and as a result, this digitization of our lives has been in a very centralized way. So we've never been so vulnerable to so few people that can control how we interact in our daily lives. And that is incredibly true for speech. I think people do not really understand the ramifications of it yet. I think people will understand it further. I think it's the same with financial freedom. I don't think people realize the relationship they're in with these centralized parties, and they, unfortunately, a lot of people do not realize until they get burned.
Until someone prominent gets burned,
someone they pay attention to gets burned. I mean, a lot of people knew when Kanye lost his bank account.
Yeah,
but like millions of people lose their bank accounts every year. And get cut out of Bank of America and Citibank and all this other shit, and no one really pays attention because they're nobodies. But when it happens to Kanye, and Kanye has his own opportunities where he can buy his own social network or buy his own bank, make shit happen. But the average person just gets fucked, just constantly gets fucked. And all these technologies, the greater freedom tech movement is all about empowering the individual. So the individual has this defensive technology. You also touched on this idea that Nostr has a bunch of different ways it could be used. And I mentioned it briefly earlier, but I am looking right now on this live chat at zap.stream. That's the website, zap.stream. Because now, like everything in our lives, it's all corrupted by fiat maxis and shitcoiners. There are a million suffixes that you can have for domains, including .stream. So zap.stream is a domain. It is this cool web service where we stream to zap.stream, and people are in the live chat, and they're sending us. Well, they're sending me Bitcoin on here. I'll give you a portion of the big. I actually owe you 100,000 sats anyway, but we can
Yeah,
get into that
there's a bet
later.
that
So
Matt didn't play
hopefully, if they
with.
keep zapping, I can take their money that they're contributing to Citadel Dispatch
Love
and
it.
pass on to you. But this is crazy. Is like, who developed Zap.stream?
I don't even know.
What
There's a GitHub repo that lists all of Nostr projects,
live chat? Tell me who developed Zap.stream.
and there are literally hundreds of them. There are hundreds of projects. It's hard to, like, I'm full time in Nostr now. It's really hard to keep up.
But this feels
everything.
like it was a weekend project.
Yeah.
They had this permissionless protocol, a weekend project. They combined it with Kieran. Kieran developed Zap.stream. So I
Okay,
believe it
cool.
was like a relatively quick project for him. And they want me to get Nostr comments in the stream instead. I haven't figured out how to do that yet. I might try and figure it out live. But anyway, and because he had two permissionless protocols, he was able to just build this thing. He didn't have to ask anyone if he could or not. And he was able to do it really easily. And that's the kind of empowerment that you see with these open protocols. Okay, all this said, we have you on. You launched Primal. What is Primal?
So Primal is a company that focuses on Nostr development. Our immediate focus is to build an alternative to the centralized social media platforms like Twitter, and we're also attacking, as I mentioned previously, textual speech. So I would include Medium and Substack in there. We started looking at Nostr back in, or I started looking at Nostr back in December, and I liked it, but there was I saw an opportunity to make this faster, basically, and I saw some gaps in terms of scaling and such. So I came up with this way of gathering all the data and doing the caching from all of the thousands of relays out there, and gathering that in a caching service, and which enabled us to implement UIs and clients which are extremely fast.
I just wanted to say that I got Zap.stream comments on the live stream. They're very excited.
Go for it.
No, they're on right now. They're very excited right now.
About the announcements, or?
Oh, I mean, we haven't got to the announcements yet. They're just very excited because I got the I got the chat on the.
What do they say?
They're seeing it on the video. They're very excited.
All right, that's
Continue. Sorry, I apologize. They're
So
zapping lots of sats. Lots of sats are being zapped. I can pay you off on the bet
because
already.
you'll be able to pay me back. Excellent.
Yeah.
So Primal, the whole idea behind Primal is to build on Nostr and to bring Nostr to the masses, to bring Nostr to millions or potentially even billions of people out there. And currently there are some technological and kind of UX gaps to be able to do that. And we're focusing all of our efforts into kind of bridging those gaps. And one of these gaps is the kind of performance issue, and how quickly the UIs can load, how quickly we can load the data. So we look at the whole stack and we build client applications for all of the platforms, but we also, more interestingly perhaps, build the middleware, the caching technology that makes it possible to bring the types of user experiences that people are used to with centralized platforms like Twitter and so forth, which load instantaneously, but without compromising the censorship resistance aspects and kind of self-sovereignty aspects of Nostr. So at the high level, this is kind of what Primal is doing currently.
So, Nostr, the protocol, is incredibly powerful. It has an immense amount of potential as a tool for freedom in the world. The major friction point is how people interact with the protocol. And Primal's goal, one of Primal's main goals, is to make that experience as polished as possible. So someone can just go onto their app store, install an app, go through the onboarding flow, very simple, easy onboarding flow, and have an app that is even more performant than their favorite centralized social media addiction.
Yeah, that's basically it. That's the goal, and we're kind of
like workshopping the messaging.
Yes. I prefer your version.
and so we have so first of all, I will say that I am a massive Twitter addict. I disavowed all social media about a decade ago. Got rid of LinkedIn. Fuck LinkedIn, man. The worst of the worst. Got rid of LinkedIn. You want to know when you have fuck you money? You have fuck you money when you get rid of LinkedIn. It doesn't matter how much money you have. If you feel comfortable getting rid of LinkedIn, you have fuck you money. Just FYI to everyone. Got rid of LinkedIn. Got rid of Facebook. Got rid of Instagram. Got rid of Snapchat. Never joined any of the other ones. But Twitter was the only one left remaining, and it was a platform where there was open discussion was being had. All my discussion was pretty much focused on Bitcoin. Never deleted a tweet in my life. You can go through, if you're allowed to search on Twitter. I don't know if you're getting rate limited or not. You can go through. There's 10 years of Bitcoin discussion in my archives that are all open. Most of them, if you go through the threads, like other people have deleted tweets, but I haven't. Love Twitter. The past regime, not great. There's a lot of censorship. I got shadow banned in that regime as well. But I continued because there was no really good alternative. This current ownership, Elon, this is not speculation. He wants everyone to verify their identity. That is a non-starter for me. I am obviously a public figure. A lot of people know me. There are almost 250 people here at Bitcoin Park. I've shaken all of their hands. But at the end of the day, what made Twitter great to me was this idea that anyone could just be a NIM. Anyone can join the conversation. There wasn't these multiple classes of users, and people weren't pushed into identity verification. I think identity verification is going to go across the board. So, I mean, this is a real threat. And fortunately, I'm in a position where I never really wanted to be a so-called influencer. I think influencer culture is incredibly toxic. But I respect this idea that at will, at any point, people can, a single individual can essentially take away your income stream if you are that, right? If you rely on that. If you rely on Twitter, like people every day, watch what they say because they might lose their platform. They might lose their audience. We see my good friend Marty, who does Rabbit Hole Recap with me, just posted a recent podcast, and COVID was the topic. And he didn't post it to YouTube, right? And that's the implicit understanding that if he posts it to YouTube, he might get a strike from the YouTube people, and he might use his YouTube platform.
It's self-censorship.
It's self-censorship, exactly.
So it's not only like, so this particular show, he probably knew he couldn't post the whole show, but like for a bunch of other shows where these types of topics come up here and there, you kind of maybe pull back a little bit, even subconsciously, knowing that, hey, you might get another strike on YouTube or something. But I wanted to ask you something. So you said you got rid of all of social media years ago, but you
Yeah.
stayed on Twitter.
Yeah.
I presume it's because that's the online speech platform, like that is the town square, or used to be the town square.
The point is like,
Oh.
yeah, like when people say, like, Matt, why are you still on Twitter complaining?
Uh-huh.
Is because Twitter was a big deal for me. Like, I met a lot of friends through Twitter. I had a lot of good discussion through Twitter. Like, it was empowering. And when I have people say to me, Matt, you have almost 200K followers on Twitter. Like, you don't understand. I'm just a little account. Like, I need to get the blue check. I need to verify my identity. Otherwise, I won't have any reach. That's the point. That's why I hate it. That's why I hate this move, is because a young Odell to have any voice in the conversation would have been forced to verify my identity, and I might have been weaker at that point.
Yeah.
Right? I might have been weaker and actually complied and did that for this increased engagement, for the ability to send longer tweets, for the ability to edit my tweets, for to send longer videos. And if you watch anyone with a large platform on Twitter, they've mostly just all complied.
Yeah.
They've all just completely complied with the identity verification. And to me, Nostr, I guess it was a very long-winded context explanation or whatever. I mean, if you listen to Rabbit Hole Recap, I've been going with Marty about my issues with the blue check for a while. But if you listen to Citadel Dispatch, I haven't really talked about it. So I just kind of wanted to give you guys some context if this is the only show you listen to. But to me, Nostr is what I was sold Twitter was.
I was going to ask, if
right?
Nostr didn't exist, would you still be full on Twitter?
Well, I would still be anti-check,
Right.
but I just wouldn't have an alternative.
Right.
To me, Nostr is what I was sold Twitter was. Just a truly free speech platform. It's not a platform; it's a protocol. But this is a nuance.
So let's dissect that a little bit. I think that's I'd agree about that. So Nostr has the potential to grow into the town square that Twitter is, only for real, only without the centralizing capabilities. But that's only one small aspect of what Nostr can do. There's a ton of other things that can and will be and are being built on Nostr. So, and the network effects that you get from each of those
fucking insane
applications is insane. So let's say if Twitter and Medium and Substack were on the same protocol, on the same,
and Spotify and Instagram
and then Spotify and then Instagram
and
then
even
some
more than that.
marketplaces and like all
and eBay, and
people like Pablo
and local Bitcoins, like all of these.
everything, and a ton of different applications. Let's say people like Pablo are building things like Highlighter. You
Right.
can see it at highlighter.com. It's
Great
like
domain.
Yeah, it's a great domain.
Pablo's a ride or die freak. Pablo's such a ride or die freak. He's both in the YouTube comments and the Zap.stream comments. He's in both comments.
Shout out. So all of these things are being built on the same social graph without requiring permission from anyone. And any piece of content that you generate in any one of these individual applications can be referenced in any of the other applications without permission.
Fucking insane.
That's insane. Like even those of us who are in Nostr full time are still having a tough time coming to terms around what this is actually going to mean. And we're kind of lucky that we're seeing this sprout from the get-go, and it's going from just a handful of users to tens of thousands of users to hundreds of thousands of users. It's happening in front of our eyes. it's just insane.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. That's why I like preface it with just like we can't even really comprehend the implications. Um, and it's funny because it's similar to Bitcoin in a way that it's hard to describe because there's so much nuance. Um, it's hard to describe what the potential implications are, but even just I just want to drill back down to just this basic Twitter functionality, Twitter-like functionality, like what I was sold as a young kid, what I was sold Twitter was, right? That alone, that tiny little piece of what will be the greater Nostr ecosystem, uh, is revolutionary in itself. This
I agree.
idea that no one can easily censor you, that no one can easily stop you from broadcasting your speech, um, that you take the control from an individual company um, to an actual individual user, right? Is a fundamental paradigm shift to how we have um, treated speech on the internet up until this point.
That in itself would have been huge
Yeah,
if it was just that.
just that. That's what makes it so hard to talk
But
about because I want to
yeah,
like all of it is crazy, but that one part is fucking crazy.
yeah, that's probably the core of Noster. I don't know if it's the core philosophically, but in terms of how it's being used, it probably, if we look at the events that are being posted and users, and um, it's probably that micro blogging application is by far the number one um, use case for Nostr currently. But all of these other things are sprouting as well. We have long form content with Habla News and the Blog Stack. Yeah, there's a few that basically
Yeah.
work off the same.
Dude, this Zap.stream right now, by the way, Kieran. Kieran also has Snort. Um, he's mainly known for Snort.social, which is a web Nostr client.
That's a great client.
They've zapped me. They've sent me over 400,000 sats of freedom money.
Since the beginning of the show.
Yeah, they zap in the comments. It's the coolest fucking thing. Anyone who's watching on YouTube can see it, or Twitch, or Bitcoin TV. Obviously, the people that are on Zap.stream can see it, but everyone can fucking see it right now. That's fucking crazy.
It's crazy. You can afford to lose multiple additional bets.
Yeah, I lose a lot of bets. This is my thing.
I love it. You lose them for being overly bullish.
Always overly bullish, and we'll talk about the bet I lost. But yeah, I mean, before we talk about the announcements, the integration with Bitcoin is fundamentally changing things too. Like you mentioned Abla News, which is really demeaning to Abla.news to say this, but a Substack competitor that's built on the Nostr protocol.
I don't think that's demeaning. I wouldn't be.
I think it's a lot bigger than that as a concept.
Substack is a fine company, big company,
Right.
providing great service, lots of
a horrible service, and that's why we need alternatives. But it has direct Bitcoin payments built into it.
Yes.
At a fundamental level. It's not like a writer needs to ask for donations at the end of their post. It's not like you could post a meme on the quote unquote microblogging side of Nostr. You don't have to ask for money. Anyone can just send you freedom money. They can send you Bitcoin. And I do wonder because a massive massive part of my a bunch of my brain power is constantly thinking about this idea of just like broken incentives. Bitcoin showed me that if you look at what is most wrong with our world, you can usually dial it back down to some kind of broken incentives, right? And we've seen this massive influencer domination of communication of media. People don't watch CNN. People don't watch Fox News. They have their favorite influencer or whatnot. and everything is all about engagement and everything is all about ads. Your podcasts are filled with ads. YouTube filled with ads. Your favorite Instagram influencer is trying to sell you sunscreen, right? And all of a sudden, you take out these middlemen that are involved in this monetization of content and speech, and you direct the audience. You're directly connected to the audience who can fund you, right? And you have this direct incentive to serve them. You're not serving your ad partners. You're not serving the quote unquote algorithm that is a complete black box on whatever individual platform, and you're able to receive these funds directly. That Bitcoin element is incredibly powerful. And I actually think that like the early days of Nostr is like Bitcoiners bootstrapping Nostr. And I'm curious on your opinion. I think at some point Nostr overtakes Bitcoin in terms of adoption. And then Nostr essentially increases Bitcoin adoption. Like most people, there'll probably be billions of people in the world that their first interaction with Bitcoin is Nostr, not the opposite way around, right?
I think you're right. I think that's right. We're already starting to see people who got into Bitcoin through Nostr, which was wild to see. Like the conference we had in Costa Rica back in March, there were a bunch of people there who I don't know how they ended up there. Maybe they were traveling or whatnot, but they ended up at the conference and they got onboarded onto Nostr and got really into Nostr. They understood what it is and why we're building what we're building, the way we're building it, and so forth. And then they start getting to Bitcoin. They kind of tangentially got into Bitcoin. So I think this core of kind of user base of Bitcoiners is required to sprout off the network, and it seems like we've done that actually. That might be the most difficult step. These first few, let's say 50, 100,000 users that are actually there, like day in day out. The intolerant minority. Almost, you can think of them, in the sense that, they're for Bitcoiners. There's a bunch of people who own Bitcoin, but there's like the core that runs nodes. It's
Right.
probably like maybe same order of magnitude, like 20, 30.
How many people do you
50,000.
think run Bitcoin nodes?
I think it's in the tens of thousands.
Yeah.
And there are millions of people who own Bitcoin.
How many people do you think self-custody Bitcoin?
Probably, I think we have the numbers on the nodes, so that's easy. We have the numbers on the total kind of owners of Bitcoin, people who have Coinbase accounts and stuff like that on the other extreme.
They have IOUs.
Right. But how many people self-custody? Probably like a million, maybe low digit millions.
Well, we
What
know
do you think?
when the Ledger leak happened, they had 1 million customers leaked.
That sounds right to me.
So that's like a bottom line
Okay.
a Ledger self-custody. Maybe like 2 million, 3 million
Yeah, that sounds right to me.
of like 8 billion people.
But
Yeah.
I think that works. This type of distribution works
Right.
for Bitcoin. It like the network is already resilient enough for this to work. If you
Right.
have tens of thousands of like really intolerant, hardcore Bitcoiners who are not going to change their nodes on a whim, change the software on their node, right? Protecting the network from that standpoint. Like if you want to change Bitcoin, you need to convince those guys to run your version. So that's going to be tough. And then you have a few million people who self-custody, and then you have tens or maybe hundreds of millions of people who think they own Bitcoin or who own Bitcoin through IOUs.
Yeah, it's probably like 10 million self-custody, 100 million custodial.
Those are the orders of magnitude. And I don't know, like curious to get your take on it, but I think that works. That type of distribution. It'd be amazing if we had more node runners, but I mean 10, 20, 50,000 actual economic actors that run nodes. That's pretty good.
It's pretty fucking high. I mean, there's like one Federal Reserve node.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
So in the context of Nostr,
Yeah.
It's a little bit different, but you do need a core group of people who are there to for the kind of censorship resistance reasons and for the kind of network strength reasons, and who are willing to run the relays.
The ride or dies.
Exactly. And then I think that group continues to expand. I think will continue to expand because I don't think we've onboarded all of the Bitcoiners. Like, let's say, here's a thought experiment. What would it look like? What would it take to onboard all of the self-custody Bitcoiners? The 1 to 5 million Bitcoiners onto Nostr. I don't think we're anywhere near them kind of being on these
Right.
networks. So we're so early still. And
No, it's incredibly Nostr's incredibly early.
yes.
But
And it's a bit of a blessing, to be honest, for us builders right now that it's not going gangbusters, that we're not hockey sticking in terms of growth, because it's hard enough to build this stuff when there's no chaos, right? Like, so just imagine if we were onboarding, hundreds of thousands of users now, per week or whatnot.
right.
That's not happening currently. We're kind of at a
How many active users do you think are in Nostr right now?
So there's a few different ways to look at it, and a couple of different kind of groups who are doing the work to estimate all of this. I like the work that Arthur from Nostr Band is doing, Nostr.band. He has his stats there. So he is just like Primal. He has a service that connects to all of the publicly available relays,
Right.
and connects and collects all of the events that are being published in real time. And those events, like likes and posts and notes and so forth, they obviously are signed by the key of the user, so you can kind of get user stats from there. So the numbers that he is reporting are on the order of 30 to 40,000 weekly active users. I think that's the kind of 25 to 30. That's the ballpark. Now, these are when he calculates active users, he has like two. I think he's being a little bit maybe too strict in terms of like what he considers to be an active user in two different ways. First, he trims down the overall number of users to to a group he calls trusted users. To through analytics, he's figuring out
because it is an
human,
open network graph.
Exactly.
So he's putting on this.
So just to back up, the problem we're facing here is that anyone can easily create a key pair, right?
Right.
So you can create bots so easily. There's millions and millions of
like
key
Bitcoin.
pairs.
You can just generate a key pair offline,
exactly. And then you can start doing stuff with it. Like, so it's very.
You don't
easy
have to sign up, provide your identity, whatever. So the actual public keys on the network isn't the signal. That's
exactly
a massive upper bound.
Exactly. So it's easy to spin up bots on Nostr, and people are doing it.
Right.
So you need to do some analytics work to figure out through the social graph, through all of the relationships, follows, and so forth, and maybe other means as well, of who the trusted users are. So he kind of limits the number of pub keys in that way, and then he only is reporting those users who are actually performing actions. So if you're just reading Nostr, you are using it, you are an active user. But if you didn't even perform a single like, you will not be counted in that.
Right. And this is something you see with centralized social media, where most people just read. They don't actually communicate.
Yes. So that would be interesting that's a piece of information we collectively as Nostr community, I think we don't have. So Arthur has done a great work to kind of give us the numbers on people who are doing stuff on the network. So that's the lower bound of the active users is what he's reporting. I think on the monthly basis, it's something like over, I think it's between 50 and 100,000 users. And then on the weekly basis, maybe like 25, 30. So that's the lower bound, I think. We don't know how many more. Maybe it's multiple folds from that. It kind of feels right to me that it would be.
Right. So the upper bound, if I go to Primal and go to Explorer,
right.
The upper bound is the number of public keys, which is 31.9 million public keys.
Correct.
Which is way off.
Yeah, we don't have that many users.
There's a lot of millions, though.
Yes.
And then the lower bound you think is like 20,000, 10,000.
Well, if we're talking about, let's say, monthly active users, it's like order of magnitude like 50, 70,000 users.
Right.
So that would be lower bound. That's users who are actually logging in and doing stuff like liking and posting and so forth.
That makes sense. So, I mean, we have some Bitcoiners in the chat that disagree with our self-custody estimation on Bitcoin.
Okay.
That is fair. It is mostly a guess.
They think it's more or less?
I think he thinks it's more. Mostly a guess, hard to tell, for sure. There's a bunch of different ways you can calculate. I feel pretty confident in that 10 million range, but who knows? The more the better. I will say, just to defend my statement about why I think Nostr will onboard at some point, there's like I'm not going to say the word. At some point, Nostr starts onboarding people to Bitcoin versus Bitcoiners onboarding to Nostr, is because for better or for worse in our society, social media is a major aspect. If you ask most of our average or our non-Bitcoiner friends what they care about, most of the time it's not money. They just take money for granted. At least in the developed world, they take money for granted. They just assume the institutions will be trusting. But what they spend 9 hours, 10 hours of their day is hunched over their phone, scrolling Instagram or scrolling Twitter or scrolling TikTok. And that is a real connection to them. So to me, this idea of a freedom-oriented social protocol or communication protocol is a direct connection to a in the near term a much larger group of people, and as a result, they might not even switch to Nostr for the freedom-oriented money side, but then they touch that aspect, and this idea of buying Bitcoin or and then learning how to self-custody and all these other, like that takes a step. But if you're just posting a meme on the internet, or let's be honest, if you're posting a glamorous shot of you out to dinner, and you get just paid money on the internet that you didn't buy, that's a much easier touch point. That's a touch point that you didn't do anything additional. You'll still get your likes, you'll still get your retweets, what we call them reposts on Nostr. You'll still get all that, but you also just, like, some stranger just sent you money. I think for a lot of people that will be their first touch point. I think that makes logical sense to me. And this is coming from someone who's one of the most bullish people on Bitcoin. Like, I'm incredibly bullish on Bitcoin. I remain incredibly bullish on Bitcoin. But a lot of people are going to get onboarded to Bitcoin, I believe, through switching to Nostr. And I think Primal is a very interesting Primal is a very interesting part of that message, because we have someone in the comments saying OnlyFans thoughts are going to love it. I haven't even mentioned OnlyFans. OnlyFans got completely cut off by the traditional financial system, and they started cracking down on people and saying you can't have certain content and still get paid for it because they were using traditional financial rails. So yeah, I mean, OnlyFans is going to be, the OnlyFans use case is going to be fucking massive on Nostr, and they're going to use Bitcoin as the payment method. Like, that's what's going to happen. And these people, like, you can, tell them to read the Bitcoin Standard or go on whatever kind of orange pill narrative you want to go on.
Yeah, people don't care about the
They don't care.
masses don't care.
But until they when they post and they're able to post and they don't get censored and they're able to receive payments from their audience, they will care. But Primal plays an interesting role here because your team is focused on just making this a better experience altogether. It's not just about the freedom-oriented aspects. The thing will load quicker.
Yeah.
It already does load quicker than Twitter, and you're very early beta.
It does, and that's really our focus. We want to do what it takes to get that Nostr experience to be as good, if not better, than the kind of legacy centralized media that people are used to consuming. It needs to be at least as good. And you're right. Currently, we do in a lot of cases load faster than Twitter. There's this anecdote where we were doing a launch and somebody on the team sent me a link of something that we posted, and it was at the end of a long day, and I clicked on it, and it was like 1,000, 1,000. I was like, what the fuck? Why is it not loading? Oh, it's Twitter. Okay, so yes, I see Primal as a company or a service or a product that will bridge the gap um, in terms of performance and UX and to large numbers. This is what we're focusing on, and we'll leave no stone unturned when it comes to doing things necessary to make it happen. To make that happen, you need to solve two or three big problems and thousands of little problems, and we're just going in by one and like getting this done. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen this. I mean, I've spent years on Bitcoin education, and at the end of the day, people will just choose the most convenient option. Most people, not everyone. Most people listening to this don't. Um, Cheers to you all for taking personal responsibility over your life, but most people just choose the most convenient option. So if we can make the most convenient option, um, freedom first and privacy first, um, not require identity verification, not have centralized rulers. That is a massive step. That is a massive step at improving this world. You know, we can have a whole conversation about people dealing with social media addiction after, but at least the thing they're addicted to is not centrally controlled and easily censored, right?
Also, the incentives that you mentioned before, where if you as a publisher or a content creator, if you're um, monetizing your work by engaging your audience and getting them to pay you, similar kinds of incentives apply for product creators like Primal. If uh, if we're being paid by our customers, by the users, in other words, if the user is the customer, then we'll be incentivized to work all day long for our users, for our customers, to make everything better, and to make the feature set better, and not to optimize the feeds in a way that increases engagement and increases our advertising revenue, but instead to optimize the feeds for the highest level of signal that people need to get. I think that's a particular subject area in Nostr that's very interesting, and it's like a problem to solve, right? Because you have all of these npubs, all these user accounts. You can create bots. You can create automated content. There's a lot of content that can be created. It's already being created. So sifting through that and surfacing high signal stuff is extremely valuable, and this is something we're focusing on.
Yeah, I mean, it brings us back to the blue check because a lot of people think my issue with the blue check is the payment part, and it's not. It's the identity verification. I actually think the idea of paying for a service um, in a way that you can preserve your privacy makes a lot of sense. And I think um, there was a deliberate decision by Elon to include the identity verification with a payment to essentially make people feel like they're no longer the product because they are buying it. When in fact they're an even greater product
Yes.
because they're doing identity verification. And the perfect example of that is that they still get served ads.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I think that could be really interesting. So, we are an hour in. You have multiple big announcements here. Should we get into the announcements?
Sure, let's do it.
Let's go into the announcements. I mean, there's a lot of people waiting on these announcements.
Sounds good to me.
So let's talk about the announcements, and then we'll take it from there.
So
what are we announcing today?
We have no less than 3 announcements today.
Okay.
The first announcement is Android. As you know, we launched our iOS app yesterday in test flight, and people seem to like it. And I know, Matt, you're an Android user.
It's true. Guilty.
So we decided to hold back the Android release so we can announce it in your show. So effective immediately, as of like a few minutes ago, you can go to primal.net/downloads and download the Primal Android client. So one thing I should say about the Android client is that this is an early alpha build. It is so currently the feature set is limited to reading, so you can log in, you can get your feeds, you can do all the browsing and searching and consuming, but at the current time you can't post, there are no actions that you can do and so forth. But yeah, you will get a good feel for where we're going for with this.
It's already smooth, even as an alpha.
Yeah, you had a chance to use it, so
Yes.
maybe like I'll get your
It's
take
smooth
on it.
as fuck. I mean, I my Nostr experience is different than other people because there's a bunch of people, by the way, in the comments that are clearly watching our GitHub and have downloaded and are running the Primal APK.
Well,
already.
we took an hour to get to the announcement, so I love it. They found it.
Milan said we should front load the announcement, but I wanted to talk about Nostr, so we didn't. It's smooth.
Good. But, for all of you guys who went and downloaded the source code and built your own version, or even like downloaded the APK, right on, guys. Well, like, how do you like it?
We actually have Carnage. We have Kieran in the comments that he built. By the way, one of the cool things about the Nostr community is they are essentially like providing feedback and beta testing for Zap.stream to Kieran in the live comments during the live. Like, this is the cool part about permissionless innovation, right?
I love it. Like, we're getting so much useful feedback on all of our stuff from the users.
But anyway, what I was gonna say is, I've never really used Nostr on mobile. I only use it on my computer. So to me, to have a read-only app is like, oh, that's pretty convenient for me. It's I haven't lost any features of not being able to post. But I do look forward to. No, Kieran isn't in the comments, but Pablo's also saying Kieran is everywhere and everyone. Oh, Carnage is in the comments, and Carnage helped build it. Cheers to Carnage. Thank you, Carnage, for this app, by the way. Thank you for correcting me, freaks. Keep me honest. But I'm very excited for the full Android build. I mean, you guys have been crushing it. You guys just continue to ship. It's really fucking impressive.
Thank you.
And it's smooth. It's smooth. It works. It works really well. And I'm kind of curious. So, like the way, so on primal.net, which is what I've been using, which is the web app, you have to use it with the Albi extension or the NOS2X extension that holds your Nostr private key. We haven't even gone into the nuances of Nostr private keys, public keys, whatever. There'll be many Nostr shows in the future, freaks, that we can go deeper. With the mobile app, obviously you can't zap yet on Android.
Nope.
Can you zap on iPhone?
Yes, you can.
The iOS beta came out 2 days ago.
Yesterday. yesterday.
By the way, the bet I lost was I thought there was going to be 1,000 downloads of the iOS beta in. First, I said an hour. Then I found out the lowest guess was 3 hours, so I changed it to 2 hours because I know how Price is Right works, so I might as well increase my guess. But I was off. You freaks haven't really. We haven't hit the 1,000
We
number yet,
have.
right?
It took about 24 hours.
24 hours.
Yeah.
Well, is it limited to 1,000 now?
So we decided not to kind of open it up. The reason why we limited it originally was we didn't know what we're going to get in terms of feedback and like issues and stuff
Right.
like that being reported, and we didn't want to get overwhelmed with like 10,000 users reporting everything at the same time. This was just the right amount of feedback. What we got was just what we could handle as a team, and it turned out that there aren't too many issues that we were not already aware of.
So we're past 1,000.
We're past 1,000.
Sky's the limit.
You can still keep.
Is there? I think the test flight has a limit of automatic 10,000. Is that it?
That's right. You can't have more than 10,000 users in test flight, but we're well below that.
Okay.
Anyone who is interested can download.
When you listen to this, if you're running an Apple device, consider buying an Android device. But if you don't do that, consider signing up for the test flight before it fills up and you don't get a piece of it until it's a full release. Okay, so you released yesterday. You released the iOS release, the iOS test flight. We just announced Android
today, and
What's next?
I'll say about those two things, about those two apps. We are building them pretty rapidly. There will be like a rapid change and additions to both of these products. To give you an idea, we started coding the iOS client 3 months ago.
That's insane.
We started coding the Android client 2 months ago. So things will happen quickly, and we already did the most difficult pieces. Now it's about filling out the features and fixing stuff up. So stay tuned. There will be, probably weekly or bi-weekly updates for each of the apps. Yeah. It won't be long before Android users can, post and zap and do everything. So that's the first announcement. The second announcement is probably the most important, the biggest announcement today, I think, which is we are open sourcing the entire Primal stack. So effective immediately, when you go to primal.net/downloads, there will be links there to all of our repositories, which now include the caching service, which we open sourced a few weeks ago, the web app, which we open sourced a few days ago, but also now the iOS app, the Android app, and the full Primal server. So this is the entirety of everything that we do. We open sourced all of our code so that people can stand up a service that's similar to Primal using the code that we've opened up.
They can build off of your code and release whatever they want.
Exactly. So,
and this is a full MIT FOSS
That's
licensed. Do whatever the fuck you want with the code. It's open to the public, open to the community.
Everything's open under the MIT license.
That's fucking massive, dude.
I think so.
I think there's I don't know how many millions of people appreciate that, but there's not that many people that truly appreciate what that does for the ecosystem.
I agree.
Yeah.
We thought about it and realized this is the only way to build on Nostr, or this is the best way to build on Nostr.
And it's coming back down to those freedom-rooted ideals of
Exactly. So again, I'll emphasize, it's common that client apps are getting open sourced. Hey, how's it going, guys?
We're live right now.
Come on, Alex. You want to say hi?
Go on in.
How's it going? We have Alex Leishman in the house. You guys are on camera right now, just FYI.
Hey, how's it going?
Appreciate you, Alex. We have Rod, the co-founder at Bitcoin Park.
Sorry, you guys flow.
We're talking about
Oh,
Nostr.
good.
We'll talk about Nostr with you guys later, but
Absolutely.
thanks for
Primal.net.
stopping in. Primal.net,
Big
yeah.
fans.
Thank you. Thank
Cheers.
You guys. We'll catch
We're
you
at
later.
Bitcoin Park. We have we have 250 people here, and 2 of them just walked in. That was Alexander Leishman, founder of River.com.
Open sourcing.
And Rod. Yeah, this is fucking massive.
I
Thank
agree.
you. Thank you for thank you for your service, sir.
I agree. And thank you for everything, Matt. We'll get, I guess, to the next announcement before long. But yeah, when you think it through, you realize what we're building here is an alternative to the closed platforms.
Right.
This is why we're here. And the correct way to do that is to be radically open. So not just the protocol itself, which is open and there's that's not changeable, but also the software stacks that you build on top of, especially the pieces of software that are consumer facing.
Right.
You should be able to know precisely how Primal creates their feed, how you get the trending users and so forth. But there's another aspect.
Like the idea of Nostr isn't like the end of quote unquote the algorithm, but it's you have choice of algorithms.
There will be algorithms.
Right. And hopefully some of them will be open, including what Primal's doing.
Ours will be open, and ours are open.
Right.
Yeah, there will be lots of algorithms. It gets really interesting there. We'll build some crazy algorithms, I'm sure, and we need them. We need them arguably more than the closed platforms, because everything is so open, so everything is allowed by everyone. Everything will be tried. So to get signal from all of that will require some algorithms. You just, ideally should have full access to them. But there's another aspect of it too, which influenced our decision to open source everything. So not just the clients, but also the backend. The backend, even within the Nostr ecosystem, it's not so well. There aren't too many backends to begin with, and the ones that exist, as far as I know, are not open. So here's another aspect that needs to be considered here. Let's say if Primal is really successful, and if we're running these like caching services and discovery services and all of these things that are extremely useful, and let's say that we do a really good job and provide a great service, and a lot of users flock to Primal, that's a problematic kind of centralizing factor there. If we're the only ones running these services, or if our services are the best and users flock there, when we encounter a major censorship event, or a major situation where censorship is required by the powerful actors out there, we are an easy target. We're a company, we're like
same situation as a Twitter would face,
exactly. It's not that,
or at
much
least similar. Yeah.
So to deal with that, we decided to build clients that can connect to multiple different services out there. So and also we're opening everything up so other people can stand up those services. So that's a way. There's this whole kind of trade-off balance between, centralizing things and making everything fast because you have all the data and so forth, and like decentralizing and making it slow and not appealing to most people. This is our solve for it, where we think it's important to have these caching services and to have things load quickly and honestly help the network scale as well. But it needs to be possible that these services are being run by others. So specifically with the caching services, we are building Primal clients that have this competency to work with a caching service for reading, to be able to get all the stuff so quickly. But that's not a replacement for being able to work with the relays directly. In fact, currently the way we do it is we do the reading through the caching service, and we post directly to the relay. So anything you post currently on Primal clients goes to all your relays.
Right.
We don't interfere there. But the next step, what we're working on, is we are adding the capability in the clients to work with multiple caching services kind of at the same time. So instead of one caching service, you have a list of caching services, and the client is smart enough to kind of pick the right one, the most well-performing one, and fail over. Like if the assumption is that any of these services can go down at any given time for any reason, so all the clients should just gracefully fail over. And the user should be able to configure which, just like they can configure which relays they use, they can also configure what's the set of caching services they want. And finally, the ability to use the Nostr gossip protocol to read from the relays as well, and to connect to do relay discovery and work with the Nostr network that way. We're also implementing that. So in a perfect scenario, the client should be a perfect client in my mind is one that has a competency to work with the caching services, has this ability to do failover, and it has the ability to switch off the caching services and work just with the relays. That's the type of Nostr client that I would want to use, and that's
Right.
the type of clients that we're building. So I think we're willing to experiment when it comes to this kind of scale of decentralization and centralization. There's like trade-offs. We as Bitcoiners know we're always dealing with a set of trade-offs. It's never going to be perfect across the
Right.
board.
Everything
Right?
has trade-offs.
Exactly. And we think there's an interesting trade-off balance along the lines of what I just described, where you get top performance, but if primal services go down, assuming that there are other services that are stood up, your client just continues working. And then if all of those things are down, all of the caching services are down, then you work directly with the relays. That's
But the caching service here is key to making it smooth and performant, and while still it's this, like, let's go into the caching service a little bit. It's a little bit hard to grok, but this is what makes scrolling on Primal silky smooth, right? Is the caching service.
So when I said there are 2 or 3 big things that need to be solved and 1,000 little things to be solved to make that feed scroll smoothly, the caching service is one of the big things that needs to be probably the biggest thing there.
Because otherwise you're pulling it directly from relays, right?
Otherwise you're fetching from relays and hitting a number of different relays to get the feed, and there's a problem also, an indexing problem as well, because you don't know specific relay has all the data, so you can't see how many likes. You can't quickly see how many likes a certain post.
Because you're pulling it from all the different relays.
Exactly.
Like the normal way a Nostr client works is I'm manually pulling from 10 relays or however many relays you have set. I'm pulling all this information from, right?
Exactly.
But the caching service has already pulled this information from the relays, and then the client is also verifying against the relays to make sure the caching service isn't lying to them. Is that what's going on? Like what?
That's right. So like there's the whole kind of well, let's take it one step at a time. So a typical Nostr client would connect, like you said, to 10 or 20 relays, however many you configure, and then you will get your feed by hitting up all those relays and kind of querying them for the people you follow and getting all the data back. And there's a lot of redundancy there. You get a lot of the same data from a bunch of different relays. But the fact is that that small subset of relays compared to the whole network doesn't have the full picture of the network. So you might be missing some data and some numbers might be wrong. For example, probably the most famous aspect of this is follower numbers, right? It's hard to get follower numbers like this, and you're really hammering all the relays pretty badly to get a number that's like spectacularly wrong for followers specific. That's probably the most extreme example. So instead of that, we are we built this caching service that connects to all of the publicly accessible relays that we can find, and collects all of the events, everything that's being published in real time, and stores it in a way that's highly available, in a way that kind of guarantees that most queries will be served from the RAM, and then clients can get the response times that are on par or even better than the centralized platforms, right? And you can get accurate data because then we know how many followers people have, we know how many likes a post got.
But the key is there's a trade-off there where you have to make sure that the caching service isn't lying to you, right?
And then there's that. So basically, the only way for caching service to lie, because all of these events are signed,
Cryptographically signed,
right, by your private key. The only way for the caching service to lie to you is by omission.
right?
It can be like you can just exclude some stuff.
You have 3 followers instead of 10 or something.
Or Matt didn't make this post.
Right.
Matt just made these 12 posts instead of these 25 that he actually made. Stuff like that, right? So the competency of a client to work with the caching service, but also query the relays in some sort of smaller kind of subset of the data, is interesting there, because you can flag stuff that was not sent to you by the caching service.
So you verify a subset. The client in the background is like verifying a subset, and if the caching service is lying to you, I assume you're not there yet, but the idea is that there's like a failover. It's like, okay, I'm going to switch to a different caching service and check it.
Yes, so you're right. We're not there yet. This doesn't work currently in Primal clients, but this is where we want to go, where we're kind of reducing the trust to the caching service, where it can surface some posts maybe that are, if they're being hidden by the caching service, and if you get too many of those as a user, you can decide to switch to a different caching service or switch it off.
And I'm like running really quickly here while we're live on air, but like that is part of the reason why it's super important that you release the caching service as a completely false implementation, so that you can have multiple competing caching services. And then, so not only is maybe the failover verifying against the relays, but you can actually verify across caching services. And if one is omitting something, then you stop using that caching service. And that could all be hidden from the user. Like all this stuff we're talking about, the average Nostr user is just installing the Primal app and they're using it like social media. They're not even thinking about any of this shit. It's all happening kind of in the background.
Yes, you got it. And this is why we open sourced the caching service first. I think it was like, I forgot exactly.
Yeah, Pablo's in the comments bragging about using it for 2 months.
Yeah. Well, we published it, we open sourced it, and then Pablo had it up and running within a few hours, even though he was traveling, he was flying that day.
Dude is a fucking beast.
Yeah. But yeah, so it was pretty obvious from the beginning that the caching service needed to be open sourced. Where we kind of took it to the next level today is we open sourced the entire backend. So everything else on primal.net that's being done on the backend is now also open sourced. And it makes sense to break out these two things, because some people might only need the caching service. Probably most people will only need that, but the backend is there for those who want to look at the algorithms and look at our kind of discovery features and fork our stuff and run with it, hopefully. And again, this is not only kind of altruism and being, doing the right thing, but also it's creating moat for us. If there are multiple successful players who are doing this, then we become less of a target
Right.
in these situations.
Because Primal's not successful if Nostr's not successful. So to capture Nostr as a protocol would be a complete failure for Primal. The incentives are aligned in that regard.
Absolutely. To make a credible argument out there that Nostr is different, even from purely selfish reasons, let's say for Primal, if we're out there, we want to compete with not with other Nostr clients necessarily, but we want to, at this stage, we want to compete with Twitters of the world. To make a credible argument, we need multiple or many successful clients. We can say, look, if Primal, why is Primal different? Well, because we can't lock you in even if we wanted to. You can take your key and go to Snort or Damus or Amethyst or many other clients.
Potential Primal forks
as well.
Right.
In our analysis, it made more sense to have Primal forks than not.
I mean, as someone who fully believes in the freedom potential of Nostr, the protocol, I think we're incredibly lucky, and I feel very grateful to have builders like yourself in the space. But also, I mean, so many builders in the Nostr ecosystem at this early stage. It's just crazy how many are so focused on this just greater freedom mission, and you just can't manufacture that kind of early adoption by diehards who are building in an open and transparent way, and that's going to make or break whether Nostr is a success versus just another flash in the pan.
Yeah, I agree. It really does feel pretty special, and it was eye-opening back in March, and a lot of stuff has happened since March. When we were all, or a lot of us were at Costa Rica at that conference, and
Nostrica,
exactly. It really did feel special, and still does. Something is happening here.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't around when Bitcoin first got created, but I'm fortunate enough to be around when Nostr's in its infancy. It's a really beautiful thing to witness unfold.
Same.
So we have one more announcement.
Yes, the third announcement is that Primal has closed a round of financing. We secured $1 million from 1031, Hivemind Ventures, and a couple of angels to help us build premium UX on all platforms and form factors and bring this to as many people as possible.
Very excited about this. In hindsight, I was thinking before we, in hindsight, I mean, about like 10 minutes ago, I was like, damn, we probably should have, as a managing partner of 1031, we probably should have led with the fact that we were supporting you just as a overly disclosure thing before this conversation. But that was not the intention, freaks. The intention wasn't to deceive you or shill you on Primal. I had the fortune of meeting Milan, well, first through his earlier project, but then the second connection was through a mutual friend, and just very excited to support you. This is why 1031 exists. 1031 exists to support these kind of projects, and I think it's very rare. It's very rare for and huge shout out to Max at Hivemind for joining us in this journey, and the angels that are involved, the other investors that are involved, because I think it's the traditional fiat venture mindset can't understand a project, a startup that would release their intellectual property
Yeah.
to the world for free.
Yes.
Like that's a ridiculous,
Yes.
it's a ridiculous concept. And I think it's even more ridiculous that I'm incredibly excited that you have done that. And that our whole team at 1031 is incredibly excited that you've done that. And I'm just excited to go on this journey with you. I'm very excited to go on this journey with you. I can speak for everyone at 1031 that we're very excited to be a part of the Primal mission, a part of the Nostr mission. We're going to have a lot more focus on the Nostr ecosystem in general. But across all my work, Bitcoin will always be a major focus. But Nostr is going to be an increasingly larger focus. We have in OpenSats, we have our Nostr fund. We've already funded 16 projects, no strings attached, open source grants. 1031, we're extremely excited to join you and the rest of the Primal team on this journey. Bitcoin Park, we're going to have a more focus on Nostr education. We have Nostrville in November. We already have NIP5 handles for our members at bitcoinpark.com. We now have our own bitcoinpark.com relay. The podcast, as you can tell, Citadel Dispatch, we're an hour and a half into a Nostr podcast. There is going to be more Nostr conversation on this show. Rabbit hole recap. We've already been talking about Nostr for months now. We are not going to stop. But I appreciate you. I just appreciate you. I've been very excited for this moment to tell the world. And I've been very excited about Primal for a couple months now. And Milan's like, no, you got to wait. Can't talk about it yet. We got to wait. The moment's going to happen. And that moment is here now. So I
Love
just
it.
appreciate you.
Love it. Thank you so much. And I'll say this: the way you and your team have reacted when we decided to open source everything, and also the way Max from HiveMind reacted and the other investors, it was just like unanimous, complete support across the board. Made me understand fully that we've surrounded ourselves with the right people. It means a lot in this type of environment to be partnering with such mission aligned investors. It's really a huge deal for us, and thank you for the vote of confidence. We don't take that lightly, and we're gonna kick some ass here. We're just getting started. We're only a few months into this.
Dude, it's so fucking early. Let's build this fucking future.
Oh yeah, this is going to happen. This is all happen. It's inevitable, definitely.
Fuck yeah. Like I think this is the first of many conversations. The local time here is 8:50 p.m. You had a lot of delays on your flight to get here. It was important that we did this in person, I think, as well.
I agree.
So I appreciate you making the journey out to Nashville so we can do it in person.
My
and the
pleasure.
Lightning Summit is going to be fucking awesome too.
Can't wait.
So
Can't wait.
This idea, like Bitcoin and Nostr, is just so intertwined. I think people will. I don't need to convince you. Time will tell. Time will tell. But I think the destiny of both protocols is forever intertwined, and I think most people are just going to come to it gradually, then suddenly. But I mean, with all that said, like, should we go get dinner?
I think we should.
Yeah, I mean,
that was a good rip.
I don't think they could hear your stomach grumbling on the on the feed, but how can people find you on Nostr? What is your NIP5?
So you can my NIP5 is Miljan at MILJAN at primal.net, and you can find me on primal.net. There's a search box there for users. It's very easy. Just look for MILJAN.
Awesome. And we're going to do more Citadel Dispatches in the future.
Let's do it.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you. Shout out to all the freaks who joined us. It appears that they decided live during our chat that they need to have some way in the Zapdot stream to show how many sats have been streamed during this. I don't think anyone really knows how many sats were streamed during this. I realized that the number I quoted was just the top 3 zappers.
Whoa.
So I don't really know how much freedom money you guys sent me, but thank you for sending it. And I look forward to going through this journey with all you guys. Thanks to the freaks who joined us in the live chat. I know we were delayed by like 5 hours, so even more impressive to join us on a Wednesday night. Huge shout out to Milan and the rest of the Primal team. Thank you guys. And huge shout out to everyone building on Nostr. If you haven't checked out Nostr yet, consider checking it out. If you have iOS, you can download the Primal test flight right now. How does iOS test flight work? Do you just search Primal or?
Well, you can go to our download page.
So primal.net/downloads.
Correct.
That's the page. And if you're going to use the web app, you need to have the Albi or the No S2X extension. Do you have like is there like a good getting started landing page for Nostr people? Do we direct people like Nostr.com if you want to use another client or something? Amethyst is a great client on Android. Damus is another great client on iOS.
Yeah,
Snort.social is a web
good.
client. It's web. They don't have a mobile app, right?
I think it's web only.
Iris.2 is a great web only one.
No, I think Iris.2 has they have mobile clients as well.
They have mobile clients?
I think so. So many of them. Coracle, let's not forget Coracle.
Well, anyway, freaks, if you haven't used Nostr yet, consider trying it out. If you're burdened by the friction, just know that we are probably only a few months away from less friction. Like it's just going to be, you're just going to download, people are just going to download an app. You're just going to tell people to download their favorite app. They might not even know they can take their private key to a different app until they get censored on that app, and then they fucking do it. And that's fine. It's going to become much easier. But yeah, definitely check it out and resist the blue check. Do not verify your identity on the internet to use Twitter. That is a dark, dystopian, ridiculous world that is parallel to CBDCs. And if you have any kind of platform, whether intentionally or accidentally, just know that people are watching what you do. And if you comply with identity verification, others will too, and you're part of the problem. And that doesn't mean I don't like you. It just means I'm disappointed. Do better. Thanks, Milan.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, freaks.
Thank you, freaks.
Stay humble, stack sats, and learn how to zap sats on Nostr. Appreciate you all.